Thank you, Mr. Pedamage. We'll have the invocation by Mr. Howe. Pledge allegiance to our flag, Mr. Hall. Moment of silence for our troops and first responders, Mr. Sweeney. All rise.
Heavenly Father, once again we come before you knowing that in our country there are deaths, destruction, terrible dismay, and the virus. And we just ask you for your reassurance and pray that tonight in our proceedings it will all be pleasing to you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Please remain standing for a moment of silence to honor our military members, law enforcement officers, firefighters, paramedics, and other first responders who have lost their lives protecting and fighting for our freedoms. We also honor those first responders, nurses, and doctors who have succumbed to COVID-19 over the last 6 months due to virus complications when they contracted the virus through close interaction with infected patients and have lost their lives. Tonight, I have the solemn, it's unfortunate that I have to do this. These are 9 Marines who lost their lives in California in a terrible training accident. One has been found, the other 8 are declared missing and dead. Lance Corporal Guillermo Perez from New Braunfels, Texas. Private First Class Brian Baltiera from Corona, California. Lance Corporal Marco A. Barranco from Montebello, California. Private First Class Evan Bath from Oak Creek, Wisconsin. U.S. Navy Hospitalman Christopher Gnem from Stockton, California. Private First Class Jack Ryan Ostrovsky from Bend, Oregon. Corporal Wesley Rod from Harris, Texas. Lance Corporal Chase Sweetwood from Portland, Oregon. Corporal Cesar A. Villanueva from Riverside, California. All of those men were under 23 years old. Law enforcement officers, including K-9 officers, K-9 Ike from Maricopa Police Department, Arizona, K-9 Roscoe from Anderson County Sheriff's Office in South Carolina, K-9 Ronja from Tacoma Police Department in Washington, Special Agent John Bose from the U.S. Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, Trooper Caleb Starr, Michigan State Police, Michigan, who lost his life at a firefight in a fire. Sergeant Steve Splann, Bloomsfield Hills, Department of Public Safety, Michigan. Police Officer Sheena Day Yarborough, POW from Beaumont Police Department in Texas. Also volunteer firefighter Alec Tannenbaum from West Point and the Vales Gate Volunteer Fire Departments in New York. Firefighter engineer Pete Hine from Big Pine Volunteer Fire Department, California. Equipment operator Eric Hayashi from Hawaii Fire Department in Hawaii. Please keep their families, their spouses, their mothers, their fathers, brothers, and sisters in your thoughts and prayer as they deal with the loss of a loved one. Thank you.
Thank you, John. We'll need a roll call to determine the quorum. Lori.
Present.
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 Mr. Howell?
Here.
Mr. Pepper?
Here.
Mr. Sweeney?
Here.
Mr. Banta?
Present.
Mr. President, roll call reveals 7 present.
Thank you, Lori. 7 commissioners present. We do have a quorum. Need a motion on the agenda.
So
Move to
Mr.
approve,
President.
Mr. President. Second.
And move to approve the agenda as presented in written form by Mr. Angel and Mr. Sweeney. Any questions on that motion? Hearing none, Ms. Tanaka, please call the roll.
Mr. Angel?
Yes.
Mr. Buxton?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Howell?
Yes.
Mr. Pepper?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Banta?
Yes.
Mr. President, roll call reveals 7 yeas.
Thank you, Lori. 7 affirmative votes approves the agenda as you see in front of you. Need a motion on the meeting of Tuesday, June the 28th, 2020.
Move to approve, Mr. President.
Second.
Ready moved and seconded. Mr. Sweeney, Mr. Angel, approve the Levy Court Basis Business Meeting Minutes of Tuesday, July 28, 2020. Any questions on that motion? Hearing none, Ms. Tanaka, please call the...
Mr. Angel?
Yes.
Mr. Buxton?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Howell?
Yes.
Mr. Pepper?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Banta?
Yes.
Mr. President, roll call reveals 7 yeas.
7 affirmative votes. Approves the motion so made. Presentations, Resolution 3798, retirement of Sherry A.K. Barker. You will not be here this evening, but that needs to be read into the record. Ms. Tanaka.
Yes. Whereas the retirement of Sherry K. Barker, an employee of Kent County, State of Delaware, from her duties as Environmental Technician 2, Department of Public Works, Division of Engineering, presents a suitable opportunity for expressing the esteem in which we hold Sherry K. Barker, a good and faithful public servant. Therefore, be it resolved that the County of Kent express its warmest appreciation and thanks to Sherry K. Barker for the able and loyal manner in which she performed her public duties. Be it further resolved that this resolution be her evidence of a right to the pension provided by the Kent County Employees Retirement Program, and that this resolution be and hereby is incorporated into the official minutes of the August 18th, 2020 meeting of the Kent County Levy Court.
Thank you, Lori. We need a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Regularly moved and seconded by Mr. Hall and Mr. Sweeney to approve the retirement of Sherry K. Baker, Resolution 3798. Any questions on that motion? Hearing none, Ms. Tanaka, please call the roll.
Mr. Angel?
Yes.
Mr. Buxton?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Howell?
Yes.
Mr. Pepper?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Banta?
Yes.
Mr. President, roll call reveals 7 yeas.
Thank you, Lori. 7 affirmative votes approves Resolution 3798. Mr. Howell, it was some Public Works. Any comments you would like to make, or any comments from the Director of Public Works?
I'm glad to see all of these folks, regardless of what department they're in, and just welcome all of the new employees. Hope it's a good experience for you.
Thank you, Mr. Howell. Is Ms. Gold here? Does she want to make any comments? Is she on the line?
She's not on the line, sir.
Seeing none, we'll move on to the next order of business under public hearings. I'm sorry, introductions. The mask sort of takes away from the continuity of my program. Mr. Coelho.
Thank you, President Banta. We do have 3 new employees introduced to the commissioners tonight, and that honor goes to Director of Community Services, Jeremy Shepard. Jeremy?
Good evening, Commissioners. I have the pleasure of introducing 3 new employees for Community Services. The first one is Deborah Handel. She was hired on July 6, 2020 as an accounts specialist for the department. Debbie recently retired from the state of Delaware, where she worked in the office of the State Bank Commissioner and as an administrative specialist and an NDIC investigator. Prior to working for the state, Debbie worked as a secretary in 2 law firms. She resides in Commissioner Angel's and Commissioner Pepper District. Debbie Handel.
Hello, sirs. I want to thank you for the opportunity for this position. I'm excited to start this next chapter of my life and serving the residents of Kent County and you.
Debbie, welcome you aboard, Mr. Angel.
Well, welcome to the county family. I don't think they could have found a better person to fill in and do what you do. Jeremy, you're going to have somebody really keep you on your toes financially.
Thank you.
Mr. Sweeney.
Mr. Shepard, this is a new position, correct? For parks?
In a way it is. We did have, we had a different position. We kind of melted it for the entire department where we had 2 people doing the job. So she's doing the job of 2 people.
So, Ms. Handel, there you go. You have the ability to really shine. You've gotten into a very good department at the county. We expect good things from you. Welcome aboard.
Meet your expectations.
Up next is Olive Keegan Kelly. She was hired on July 13th, 2020 as a Library Tech 1 in the Library Division. Olive most recently worked as a library aide at Brandywine 100 Library in Wilmington. Previously, she worked in the insurance industry as an executive assistant and as an insurance producer. Olive currently resides in Newcastle County. Olive.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'd like to thank you very much for the opportunity for working in Kent County, and look forward to serving the residents of Kent County.
Welcome aboard, Ollie. Mr. Sweeney.
Hi, Ms. Keegan Kelly. Welcome aboard. You may remember the county library is the best little library on the highway. We still are. So welcome aboard, and Hillary will be a great person to mentor yourself, so welcome aboard.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next up, Heidi Seldomridge. She was hired August 3rd, 2020 as a Library Tech 1 in the Library Division. She is currently a student at Wilmington University studying behavioral science. Heidi most recently worked as a library aide at the Bear Library. Prior to that, she was an assistant sales manager at Nordstrom and a teacher at a daycare. She currently resides also in Newcastle County. Heidi.
Good evening. I just wanted to say thank you for this opportunity to serve the residents of Kent County. I'm very passionate about learning and education, and I feel like the library system is a perfect place to do that. Thank you.
You're welcome to the county, Heidi. I'm sure Mr. Sweeney has a comment to make.
So that is a great statement. I'm in education myself, so it's good to hear that. You have the opportunity, again, to learn from Ms. Welliver. Take advantage of her. She's the best librarian in the state.
I plan on it.
So welcome aboard. And just out of curiosity, both you and I'll live in Newcastle. We can't encourage you to move down here.
I've been thinking about it.
There you go. That's all I care. That's all I ask.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeremy. Next on the agenda, public hearings. First item under Mr. Buxton.
Mr. President, I believe Ms. Keefe will be joining us here momentarily, and she can go ahead and start us off.
Good evening, Commissioners. For public hearing tonight, we have Ordinance LC 2006, actually adopting the 2018 building codes. We discussed these a couple of weeks ago at committee. The primary exemptions that we've included, or exemptions of note, are under these codes, fences 7 feet or lower, sheds not greater than 300 square feet would be exempted from building permits. We also changed the permit exemption for ag buildings from the state standard for the tax exemption to simply 5 acres with the potential for income of $2,500 per year. And then finally, the code includes the standards for installation of residential sprinklers, but doesn't require their installation. It makes it voluntary. So again, this went through review for quite some time with the Building Code Review Committee. They've recommended its adoption. We did discuss at committee making these exemptions effective immediately upon adoption, whereas the balance of the building code will leave 45 days to get the word out that it's adopted. So people designing know to design to the new code. So that amendment language is included in your memo. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions for staff?
Commissioner.
Mr. Buxton.
Get to Commissioner Angel and Sweeney, and then I'll be happy to go third.
Mr. Angel.
Thank you, Mr. President. Since we're in a delicate situation right now with the way things are going with the tornado and people having permits for things that are being done, they may be running out of time because money and time and space, whatever happening. Can we put a clause in there that in case of a disaster or something in that facility, that it be extended so that they don't have to worry about it?
Any of the repairs done to the damaged structures would actually be done under a code called the existing building code. We don't have to worry about this. They would be covered. They're already protected.
I'm having a hard time hearing you,
Okay.
so.
Any existing buildings that have to be repaired, that would be done under something called the existing building code. It's a different set of standards.
I wasn't speaking about a building being repaired. I'm saying if there was something going, like a pool going to be added on and they can't do it right now because of all the trees are down and there's other things going on, and they got 90 days and something else is, now I just want to make sure we tweak it so that they're not penalized for a disaster that's stymieing them.
Are you presuming the permit has already been issued or that it has not?
I'm having a hard time hearing you here, Sarah. I'm sorry.
Angel?
Yes, Mr. Buxton.
Mr. President, may I suggest, right? Because it sounds like you're onto something that has a need, but probably not something that can be settled during this particular time. You want to suggest maybe writing something up and bringing it back to committee?
I was just throwing it out there since we're having a discussion, because what I've been working with the Rubicon people, and what I'm seeing, it's so devastating out there. I don't think they're going to have 180 days or 90 days to do some of the things they have to do. That's why I wanted to bring it up during a disaster, that it can be extended if they've already applied, that they won't be penalized. That's all I'm saying. That's all I was trying to get on here.
I will assure you that anyone who's dealing with the tornado damage, we will ensure that process is as simple as we can make it. Okay? We're not going to harm them.
Mr. Sweeney.
So I'm going to ask Commissioner Buxton. So the comment you just made was that if we find something here that we wish to change, we can bring it back up later to committee and address it then.
Some of the comments I'll be making in a second, but
Okay.
I would assume anything that we adopt, we can make an adjustment amendment to. I don't assume, we can, yes, correct?
It's an ordinance. Levy Court has the authority to change them.
Counselor? We can change this after the fact?
I totally agree with that, yes.
Okay. All right, so I do have a few questions just to get us started. First of all, under Section 8, I think it's on page 19, the examination of documents. One of the problems that, one of the issues that has been brought to my attention over the past dozen years or so has been documents that were approved by the county, but when they were brought back, there was other things found wrong with the plans or the permit, and the person had to take it away again and have the documents changed. That's I've talked about the one by the Apple. That doesn't say that in here. As to the number of times that a person can submit a document or anything like that. So that's not something that's addressed in this code.
I would suggest that that's an operational question, not a legislative question.
Okay.
And what we actually, over the past years, have transitioned to doing is marking the plans up ourselves to limit the need for an applicant to resubmit. So unless it's an extreme structural issue, if we have an extreme design issue that we can't fix for them,
Okay, so the plans
we mark
reviewers.
the plans up for them.
Okay, so plans reviewers will mark up the document, approve the permit, and that marked up document, the 2 copies, one kept here and one given to, is done, they're gone, goodbye, we're good to go.
Yep.
Okay. Is there a limitation? Is there, I know that with the inspection, there are safety issues, there are health and safety issues, there are structural issues. Those are cause to decline the permit, which I understand. But there are minor things that would be allowed.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And we routinely do that.
But it allows the plans review to make the changes, but not the applicant.
The applicant can, but it's easier on the applicant if we make those minor changes for them and effectively conditionally issue the permit.
Okay.
And, as long as you build to these changes,
All right.
that's presuming it's not a severe structural deficiency that requires redesign. But yeah, minor stuff we just fix.
So then on the phased approval, where we approve the footer, but not the construction of the foundation, then we approve the foundation, but not the construction. So is there any cause to go back and say, whoa, wait a minute, what you're doing in the walls means the foundation has to be changed?
No, when we do, and foundation-only permits are routine in commercial construction. I'm not aware of that ever happening, where we've issued a foundation only and then seen structural issues or design issues.
Okay.
I'm just not aware of that happening.
I didn't think it did. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is I'm looking at the phased approach, and I want to make sure that we don't have the ability to go back and say, well, we're sorry we approved that, but now we're saying it's not approved. You have to make more changes to the construction.
That in commercial projects, I'm not aware of it. Often what's happening is it's not necessarily our structural review that's holding something up. Sometimes it's plumbing. It's one of the state agencies.
Right.
So to keep it moving, we're very comfortable on the structural side, so we can easily issue a foundation permit.
All right, so does this code that we're going to vote on tonight also address sealed documents?
There's language about sealed documents. There are commercial plans that are required to be sealed.
And the sealed means it comes from a design specialist, and when you open up those sealed documents, can the plans reviewer make changes to it then?
We're more hesitant then. It depends on what they are. If it's something minor, like you need a smoke detector somewhere, that's less of a concern.
Okay.
If there are design concerns, normally always what happens, is we directly reach out to the designer and then talk through whatever the issue is.
I may not have the whole story, but the case I'm talking about has to do with the changing of the names of neighbors that were surrounding the property, which was nothing to do with the construction or design of the property, the design of the plan, so.
That I'm not familiar with. That is more, that's typically done on planning documents, not on construction
Yeah,
documents.
okay, all right, well. Just one more. So if we find, this is under 10515, the stop work order. If we find a developer who is consistently building homes that are substandard, doesn't list any limitations as to when we would issue the stop order if their designs are faulty to begin with.
Certainly if there are faulty designs, I hope we're finding them during plan review and addressing them then. We certainly have seen instances where a builder consistently does not build to the plan.
Gotcha.
And there have been instances in subdivisions where we've shut down an entire site.
And if they do consistently not build to the plans, wouldn't our building inspectors find that after, right before CVO?
They find it throughout the inspection process.
Okay.
And depending on where we are, they can start out issuing reinspection fees, right? We start out explaining what you need to fix, why you need to fix it, how you need to fix it. And if we have to keep coming back out, we'll keep charging you to come back out.
Right.
And if we see a trend where we're not certain you can build a house, we'll shut you down
So
until
if you
all
see a
of that
trend
gets
in
fixed.
multiple houses, or if you see a trend in a single structure?
In multiple houses, we've had,
Okay.
it hasn't happened often. I can distinctly remember one subdivision where we were constantly failing them, and we shut it down until they came in and had a conversation with us about how to build a house. We haven't had many problems since.
Okay, that's all I had, thank you.
Mr. Angel?
Thank you. I also had one on the works. And this has to do with, we have a non-Del Dot road, no bonding in place. They were going to fix the road, patch it, and go over it, which was not the way to do it. And we put a stop work order. How's that fit into the scope?
When you're talking about private roads, that's a separate code altogether. That goes to subdivision and land development. It's not the building code. Roads are not addressed in here at all.
It's not a Del Dot.
But it's a different county code that governs it. It's Chapter 187 subdivision that governs that. And that's in other codes as well, but this one's
Okay.
specific to building.
Mr. Buxton.
And I think the conversation's important because adopting the code is significant. I think it's why we really need to focus on these things during committee meetings so we can have the opportunity to go back and maybe make some suggested changes. Although we can certainly do that after the fact tonight. My questions to you, Sarah, maybe a little redundant. I asked a couple of these today, but just for the public record, maybe I'll just cut right to the main chase. In the motion, it lists that we're going to have basically a 45-day lag time to allow for the adjustment. But we're going to exclude something which I'm in support of. The only concern I have is that 45-day lag time tells me that this is going to be a change to folks that are in this business, and that's not what I was under the impression a while back. I was under the impression that we've already been operating under this type of existence of codes, and it's kind of relatively benign. It's nothing's going to jump out. So I just want to ask again, is there anything, other than the 4 bullets, is there anything in there? And I know we talked about it, energy, flooding, weather, variances, appeals, those things. Is there anything in there that's really going to jump out to people in the business as a, wow, why'd you guys do this, or when did you start doing this?
I'm not aware of anything. And a number of the, as we discussed earlier, the regional and the national builders have been using this code already in different jurisdictions. So it shouldn't be a hardship on them. The lag time is often for the smaller guys who don't do a lot of work in the county, and there might be some small changes between the 12 and the 18. Gives them
12
time.
and 18. Well, clearly, the big corporations are nice, right? They bring money in, they make the economy grow, but it's the builder whose name that I know, whose family that I know, that I'm very concerned with. I want to make sure that we've done a good outreach there. Your statement is that the Home Builders Association is fully aware of this and all the changes, and that's kind of their go-to guy, go-to organization. Yeah, so nothing out there stands out. The energy initiative doesn't offer up some things that are definitely different.
I would actually yield to Scott Tanner. I'm not aware of anything dramatic.
No bracings, no mandatory triple ply super windows, and nothing you can. Okay,
No,
I just want to ask for the record, and I understand.
And I think an apt comparison is when we went to the 6 or the 12 code and braced walls became part of the design. And that was a huge shift for builders, and we did a lot of training and work with them. I do not believe there's anything equivalent going from the 12 to the 18.
And that's fine. Yeah, obviously there's progress. There has to be change. I understand it. But I remember distinctly the 212 era, and that was a tough run, good or bad. I'm looking at some scribble notes here, and I think that's probably going to be it. I would definitely suggest that if you come up with some adjustments, by all means, let's do it. But for now, I think we are where we are. So I'm done, Mr. President. Thank you.
Mr. Angel.
Thank you. I also have one on unsafe structures and equipment. Mainly it's unsafe structures. We had a developer in the past that was putting rebar down, having the concrete poured, and then to save money, he removed the rebar and went to the next lot next door to save money, which makes the structure unsafe, and health, safety, and welfare is what I'm looking at. So we happen to catch that, but what if we don't catch it? What happens then, and what do we do to the developer then?
It's certainly one of the reasons we have building inspectors is so we can catch that, and it was our inspector who did. Even if we don't catch it, a builder is obligated to build to the code. And if there is evidence they have not, then we can take enforcement action. Presumably the homeowner could take legal action as well. And in that case, I believe what we did was insist the developer hire an engineer and ensure it was sound, to make sure the houses without the rebar were sound, and they were.
Well, it just seems like $100 for the first offense, if that's his first time, is not adequate enough. And then if he's going to do it once, he'll probably do it twice or elsewhere or somewhere else. So that's what I'm trying to say, is that are we penalizing him enough to make him do what he's supposed to do for the health, safety, and welfare for that building, the people living in it?
Typically, stopping them from building is what gets them to do what we're telling them they need to do. That's been
Just
the
want
most
to get it on
successful.
record, Sarah. Thank you.
Mr. Pettibone.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to go back to an earlier question that Commissioner Angel raised regarding stop work, and just point out that the provision of our 105-15 says that a stop work order can be issued for any violation of the building code or any other part of Kent County code that would be found by the building official to present dangerous or unsafe situations. So I just want to make sure that everyone understands that the stop work provision here is broadcast in the language, not just limited to the building code. Thank you. That's all I wanted to point out. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Pettibone. Mr. Sweeney.
Thank you. So, Mr. Pettimage, on that thought, if the builder has created a situation that is dangerous, we do a stop work order, but it's on that structure.
Well, no, it could be. Or the latter comment that where there was a widespread situation, you could shut them down until they get problems corrected before they resume. It depends on the circumstances. Obviously the building official is going to try to get compliance. I mean, the stop work order is when you're not getting anywhere with earlier attempts to get something
into
corrected.
compliance.
Yeah. And there are those situations that arise where you can't seem to get voluntary compliance, or you see repeat problems occurring, or you see things like the rebar being moved from foundation to foundation after the building inspector leaves, and you shut them down and you get them to fix it. So that's it depends on the specific circumstance and whether or not you're getting cooperation or not.
And yeah, I mean, we have the example I gave earlier where a builder just couldn't seem to build to the plan or to code. We shut down an entire subdivision, right? We're finished.
Right.
Or if, and we do this regularly now, if you're not completing the improvements that are required in a subdivision, aside from the houses, if you're not doing the open space or the landscaping or anything like that, we will stop you. And we rely on clean hands. We rely on a number of tools, but all of that's available to us.
So
it's
that's
the last
if
resort, though.
That's if the code violation is found during the construction phase. What if we find it after the fact? 5 years later, there's deficiencies in the home, doors are starting to not be able to close all the way, windows won't open, floorboards are creaking, and we go in and inspect that house at the request of the homeowner. We find all these deficiencies. Do we have the authority to go to other houses built by that contractor, by that builder, and inspect them to see if the same deficiencies were carried across other structures?
To be allowed in, we need to be invited in. So if somebody wanted us to look at their home, we absolutely would.
All right.
And that, it's not unusual for that to happen.
Okay.
Not all things that homeowners see as deficiencies are structural or code deficiencies. Sometimes it's just normal settlement on a house. But we're happy, it is not unusual for us to be called with those concerns. And if invited out, we'll happily go look.
Okay, perfect. So to follow along with Commissioner Angel's question about equipment that seems to be abandoned in a subdivision from a builder who is taken over from the original builder and has completely disappeared. I mean, we're talking 30-foot, 18-inch conduit. We're talking about a couple of Caterpillar tractors. That stuff's just laying around, rusting, the weeds are growing up over almost as tall as the tractor. What recourse do we have then?
That's a property maintenance problem.
Okay.
And I think we've discussed the one you're
Yes.
referring to, and I think we have a case on it. So that, when someone just leaves equipment around and abandons it, that's a property maintenance problem.
So with the property maintenance problem, and it was promised to the subdivision, is there any recourse for the subdivision to take ownership of that stuff and sell it off in order to get somebody else to come in and finish the job that he didn't?
I'm not an attorney, I can't answer that question.
Counselor?
Not without having a lien or securing a judgment. I think
Okay.
you would have to have some legal standing to do that, something quite specific.
Well, I've instructed the subdivision, the first course of action is to file a complaint with Chris Curtin, the homeowner ombudsman.
That's a
His
good start.
response was, well, if you have a complaint against the HOA, well, it's not a complaint against the HOA, it's the HOA complaining against the developer. Okay, thank you. So one other question, and I have something else. The Building Code Advisory Committee, was there any dissension with any of these things?
Not that I'm aware of.
They all were pretty unanimous?
I believe there was one person who felt very strongly about mandating sprinkler systems,
Okay.
but yielded to the balance of the committee.
So that's listed as number 4 on the, what was adopted as being very special. So the previous code did not have sprinklers in it?
I honestly don't recall if we took the section out altogether
Okay,
because we didn't want to mandate it. In this case, it seemed prudent because state law requires a builder to offer it. And if a builder is going to offer it, it seems prudent for us to have the standards adopted. So we have the standards included, we just say it's not mandatory.
and it's still residential, commercial still requires it.
Absolutely, that's separate fire code.
All right, final comment, and then I'll turn it back over to the president. So we started a discussion in April concerning the town of Iowa. And we already do the permit process for the town of Iowa. And we've been trying to take over the property maintenance code enforcement for the town of Iowa. All the discussions we had, I thought that tonight we were making that vote, but after reading the packet on Friday night, now I see where it's included in the property maintenance that we're not going to discuss until later in September.
We're going to discuss it tonight.
Okay,
If Levy Court is comfortable moving forward, it's on the agenda tonight, just in case, to get introduced, and the hearing is tentatively scheduled for September 15.
okay. So in the meantime, think outside the box here, please. Is there any call, any ability for us to send a code enforcement officer into the town of Iowa to look at a specific structure and to assist the town or to figure out some kind of code violations that we can help them with as, you know, they have one property that is really, really bad that
Sure.
they need help with?
And that's usually why small towns come to us.
Yes.
It is not unusual, and we're doing this with Woodside as well. While we don't necessarily have authority, we'll go out and at least make contact with the homeowner, try to convince them to get compliant. In this case, if we've got an indication tonight that we're going to move forward with that, we can talk to the town about what the violations actually are,
Okay.
and we'll be ready to go, provided we have adoption.
Okay, so given that, the homeowner's non-existent, nobody can find them.
Okay.
At what point do we just say, look, that needs to be demolished?
If it's structural, we can deal with that through the building code.
Okay,
We should be able to. But if you want to email me the address, I'll send one of the guys out as soon as we can get out there.
perfect, thank you, appreciate that. That's all I had, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. Mr. Angel?
Yes, I just have one more on this, and it's a legal loophole. It's called LLC. A company can go out of business and not have to pay for anything because they go out of business and start up again on a different name, correct?
That's my understanding of how LLCs work, yes.
Okay. Mr. Elias, is there any way we can get the law changed to prevent this from happening if they're putting the screws to our constituents?
Well, you'd have to amend the LLC Act, and I don't know how much traction, quite honestly, you would get with the legislature, but you certainly could do it, or try.
Thank you. Just want to get on the record, for instance, we're having this discussion, so that's one of the issues I've always had. So just let everybody know.
Any other questions for staff? Any other questions for staff? Seeing none, Thank you, Ms. Kiefer. The public hearing will open ordinance LC 20-06. Is there anyone here in favor? If so, come down to the podium, give us your name, address, and be sworn to affirm, please. Thank you.
Good evening, sirs. My name is Paul Eichler. I reside at 866 Monroe Terrace, Dover, Delaware. I'm in Mr. Hall and Mr. Pepper's district.
Excuse me, sir. Do you intend to swear or affirm? Swear on the Bible? Is there a Bible there? Do you swear, tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth so help you God?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. Apologize for protocol. However, I am specifically here. I am a firefighter with the Dover Fire Department. I am also the statewide chairman of the Delaware Fire Sprinkler Coalition. And I am thankful to Ms. Kiefer, first of all, for her assistance with providing me information on the update of the building code that you gentlemen are considering this evening. She's been extremely helpful, not only during this instance, but through the years in my research with regards to the Kent County Building Code. Secondly, as much as I would like to see the language accepted as it comes through in the code that the fire sprinklers are mandatory for residential construction, I greatly appreciate the change and the adaptation that you're reviewing this evening with regards to it. Your previous edition had that the only commentary was that the section was completely deleted. This edition makes note, as Ms. Kiefer noted, that the sprinkler systems are optional, be it single-family detached or townhome. And we're coming to find that even that subtle change in language is a huge help with education on the cause. So I thank you for your consideration for that, and my hope and anticipation, obviously, is that it continues through that, and then through the years, as the codes are updated and your deliberations taking the updates, that eventually it'll just be left intact and it'll be a requirement for any new construction throughout Kent County. Specifically with regards to that, I have left information that Ms. Kiefer did make reference to on the information builders are to provide to new contractees for residential construction with Mr. Petimange. So that is available for you. And lastly, in the event that your schedules allow, I'll certainly be having notice coming out that my organization, in coordination with the State Fire School, will be once again conducting a demonstration burn to show the effectiveness of the residential sprinkler systems, most likely come latter part of September into early October to coincide with fire prevention activities. And with that, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Paul. Mr. Sweeney has a question.
Paul?
Yes, sir.
Is that information going to be included in one of the hundreds of emails that you sent me?
Yes, absolutely. And you actually warmed my heart to let me know that somehow I'm getting through your system.
I suspect that I know, Sarah, who the person is on the Building Codes Advisory Committee that was so adamant for the fire sprinklers to be mandatory. Okay. Just wanted to make sure that that was the case. That was my guy, so appreciate it. Appreciate all you do, Paul, for our community and for in your time on City of Dover Fire Department.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. Mr. Buxton.
I didn't want to waste the opportunity to say, listen, I hear you, I get it, I get your emails, I've talked to you many times into this, and I'm sure others have. It is complicated, but it doesn't mean that we don't appreciate the value, and hopefully this small gesture is a start.
Yes, sir. Very much so. Very much so. And I greatly appreciate your communications with me with regards to this as well.
I'm ignoring you. We're not.
No, sir. Not at all.
Any other questions for Paul? Appreciate your time coming.
All right. Thank you for the
Yes, sir.
opportunity.
Thank you. Anyone else here in favor of ordinance LC-20-06? Anyone else here in favor? Mr. Fedemage?
Apparently, we have no callers on the call right now, so.
No callers? Anyone else here in favor? Seeing none, anyone here in opposition to ordinance LC 20-06? Anyone here in opposition? Seeing none, any callers? Nope. The public hearing is now closed. Mr. Buxton.
Thank you, Mr. President. Based on the positive testimony and approvals, comments from commissioners and staff, I move to amend Section 3 of the ordinance to add the following language. Of course, making a motion then that I want to approve the ordinance LC 20-06, 2018 building codes, and amend Section 3 of the ordinance to add the following language. This ordinance shall be effective 45 days following the adoption, except that 105-4 permits, item B, within Section 1 of the ordinance shall become effective upon adoption. Any construction pursuant to the permit approved and issued prior to the effective date of this ordinance may proceed in accordance with the previous code for as long as the subject permit is considered valid. Nothing in the ordinance shall be construed to affect any suit or proceeding impending in any court, or any rights acquired or liability incurred, or any cause or cause of action acquiring or existing under any act or ordinance hereby repealed, nor shall any just or legal right or remedy of any character be lost, impaired, or affected by this ordinance. Counselor, did you write this?
I did not.
Well, Ms. Kiefer, well done. The Building Code Review Committee voted to endorse the adoption at the July 8, 2020 meeting, and my motion is that we follow suit and approve as stated.
Second.
Regularly moved and seconded, Mr. Buxton and Mr. Sweeney, to approve ordinance LC-20-06 with the amendments that were so presented by Mr. Buxton. Any questions on that motion? Seeing none, Ms. Tadaka, please call. I'm sorry. Did we get to the opposition? There was one. We're good.
Yeah.
We're good. Thank you. Favor.
Mr. Angel?
Yes, reason stated by Commissioner Buxton, and on behalf of former Commissioner Harold Broad, he's been wanting to have this for a long time.
Mr. Buxton?
Yes, per my comments and motion.
Mr. Hall?
Yes, per previous comments.
Mr. Howell?
Yes, reason stated.
Mr. Pepper?
Yes, per Commissioner Buxton's comments.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes, per the Building Code Review Committee, positive comments, no negative public comment, and all the rest of the submitted comments.
Mr. Banta?
Based on all the positive comments and no one in opposition, I vote yes.
Mr. President, roll call, repeal 7 yeas.
Thank you, Lori. 7 affirmative votes approves ordinance LC 20-06. With that, the public hearing is now closed. Recess to committee meeting. First item under finance, Mr. Hall.
Thank you, Mr. President. This evening, we have a request for a community projects contribution fund for the Smyrna Boys and Girls Club. I don't know if anyone is here to support that.
There is.
I have I couldn't find them all.
Have a little part of this. And we have some boards here to show you.
Hi, my name is Millie Charnick. I'm the VP of Operations for the Boys and Girls Club of Delaware. And I'd like to introduce the rest of the team that's here. I have Regina Sidney Brown. She's the Director of Delaware Alliance After School. She's also the President of the Unit Board for the Smyrna Clayton Boys and Girls Club. Also Debbie Wicks, I think most of you know her. She's a former superintendent for the Smyrna School District. She also sits on our board for the Boys and Girls Club. These two ladies have been outstanding advocates for our club. And also our outstanding executive director, Yashika Bartlett, who's going to tell you a little bit about the Boys and Girls Club.
Good evening, everyone. I'm so thankful and grateful to be here, and I just feel honored that you would give us an opportunity to be able to tell you a little bit about the club and what we've done for the club so far. I do have these little pamphlets for you to look at. It does have some of the things that we're going to be talking about. So as you're aware, we opened our doors in the fall of 1999 in the former Delaware Army National Guard facility in Smyrna. Our facilities open from Monday to Friday, 6:30 a.m. to 9 p.m. So we served over 3,300 youth in the 2019 and 2020 school year. And out of that youth, we had over 42% of the children are from single-parent homes. And then from that 46%, we have over 42 youth that received or qualify for meals. Excuse me, I have to. Is it okay if I pull this down a little bit? Because I'm just having a hard time with that. Thank you so much, I appreciate it. And we have 15% of our students that are living under the poverty level. So it's really, really important that we are able to service our youth. Myself, I am a product of living in an inner city, and it was because of programs like the Boys and Girls Club that I stand here today. And it's very difficult when you're young and you're struggling and you're worried about whether you're gonna eat, where your meal's gonna come from, if you're gonna be homeless, if you're gonna have electricity and stuff like that. And so because of organizations like the Boys and Girls Club, that helped me to where I am today. And so in Smyrna, like I said, we served over 3,300 youth, and we've provided a lot of programs. I'm just take this around. So if you see right here, these are some of the programs that we have at the club. Thank you. So I'm not gonna, because I'll be here all day talking about what the club, what we've done. And so we have a lot of parent engagement. So we've done a lot of things to kind of involve our parents, because it's very important for our children and the parents to be involved so that they can see what the club is doing and what we're providing for their children. Also, we have a program called our Smart Moves program, and that program, it teaches kids from ages 6 to 18 about making healthy choices, staying away from drugs, and premature sexual activity. So we do that for kids ages 6 through 18. We also have peer-led activities. We actually have some of our teens come in and do some of the programs that we have at the club. We have a program that's PFSRX, and that is led by teenagers, and it's dealing with opioids and prescription drugs. Also, we have our newsletter club, and this right here is something that our kids put out monthly. They actually interview the staff, and they do. They have a comic strip that they do as well, and it's really, really good because they take all the pictures and they put it together, and we hand that out to parents. We also have a program called Chefing It Up. If you've been to the Smyrna Club, we don't have a kitchen, but however, we don't allow that to stop us from doing a cooking program. And so the kids have done a lot of cooking with that, as you can see, and I must, oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, and with that, I mean, our kids, they actually made the muffins for our Mother's Day, and the muffins didn't come out that great, but however, you know, they worked really, really hard, and the parents were so happy to receive that. We also do a lot of community engagement programs at our club where we invite the community, and we have like our teens actually work and put that stuff together. We also have a program for our teens. It's called the Keystone Club. That's a character and leadership program, and that is a club that's run by the teens. They do entrepreneurship, so they've had and owned a store inside the club. So they're learning everything that it entails to run a business. And I know Mr. Sweeney was asking me about what we were doing during the pandemic, and actually we opened up during the pandemic, and we actually served some of the kids. We had them come in and we allowed them to do their Zoom, and then we also tutored and worked with them during that time, and we plan on doing the same thing at the club when the school opens up as well. And I think that is about it. I mean, we do a lot of different programs, but I don't want to take up a lot of your time. And excuse me if I'm a little nervous, because I know we're trying to get money, and so that always makes me a little nervous. So, but however, we're doing great work for our youth, and I'm just very honored to be able to be here and to speak. And I hope that you guys really take a look at what we've done so far. And even if you're in the town, you can just stop by the club so that you can see the great work firsthand. We'd love to have you guys when the pandemic is over, of course.
Good job. Regina just has a couple words here. President?
Good evening, Commissioners. Regina Sidney Brown, Director of the Delaware After School Network, and a quick story about why the Boys and Girls Clubs are so important to our youth, our families, and our communities. My niece, Vanaja Laney, plays in the WNBA. She is a Smyrna High School graduate. She graduated from Rutgers University with a full scholarship, debt-free, and now she played her first year in the WNBA. She played with the Chicago Sky with Elena Deladon, and now she plays with the Atlanta Dream. And she's going to be featured in the News Journal tomorrow. Why do I share this? Because the Boys and Girls Club gave her a place to not only work on her game, but to work on her academics. The Boys and Girls Club is a part of her village, and even to this day, she makes it her business to return to not only Smyrna Boys and Girls Club, but the Boys and Girls Clubs in Philadelphia, as well as New Jersey. This is what the Boys and Girls Club does for our children, our youth, and our families. And so we thank you so much for considering funding our windows to make sure that our youth not only come into a building that is welcoming, but it's also safe and it's beautiful. Because when they come into that building, it's always welcoming. They have access to great caring adults, a great staff. But now we want to make sure that when they come in there, that they feel that that space is theirs, and that even before they walk in the door and they look at the exterior of that building, that they know that that building is safe and that it belongs to them. And so we just want to thank you for all that you do. We thank you for listening to us, and hopefully we want to thank you for funding us. Thank you.
As you can see, we're all passionate about the Smyrna Clayton Boys and Girls Club. And we're in a building that was built in 1930. And you, as you all know, because I've talked to you before about our club, we wouldn't be where we are right now without Levy Court and without many others in the Smyrna Clayton area. We've done concerts, we've done fundraisers. We had Mrs. Markell and Mrs. Carper do a fundraiser. The Willis family has done a lot of donations. We've had a lot of help from the Smyrna School District, and of course from you all here in the town of Smyrna. And now we're at the point we have 2 more projects to finish. This, the windows, is extremely important. The building looks so shabby and so down. It just looks terrible, actually. And I really thank the parents for dropping their children off at this building with the windows looking so bad. Everything else has been updated and is looking pretty good, but the windows. And I have the architect's drawing here. And we've done a lot of work to get to the place where we are, and this shows the just replacement of all the windows. This shows how poorly they look. Some of them are put together by tape. As Chica would tell you in her office, they're come together with tape. It's really a bad situation for our children and their parents, and we would really appreciate your had a roof that buckets were under for many rainy seasons. Thank goodness the roof is looking very good now. And we have a beautiful playground thanks to General Foods. We've done a lot of different things, and people have redone classrooms. The computers are pretty good shape. We're working with the school district with that and Jody. So it's $160,000 for the windows. That estimate was done in 2018. Hopefully it will hold. Winchester Brothers was the ones that helped to do this. We had pro bono for our architects, Fern and Clendaniel. They have done many different boards for us free and have done some wonderful work that has helped us to move forward. Because there is no money there. There is no money to, there's, years ago when we started this club in 1999, we looked for, was there someone in the area that would donate or would, you know, would like to be a sports figure that we could name the club after, or so on and so forth, but we never found that. Just a lot of people helping, but no great big donor. So thank goodness you've helped us, and we're looking to the town of Smyrna to help us with the other project, which is to have a good place to feed the children. There's no real good kitchen, and it's not certainly like a kitchen in a school district, but it would be a kitchen like you all have done for Dover, that kind of a kitchen in your club. So anyway, I ask you, beg you, if you would help us with this, we would really be appreciative of it. Any questions?
Debbie, I make a general comment, being from Smyrna and very familiar with the Boys and Girls Club. All of you have done an outstanding job throughout the years. And I wrote down a few words here to pretty well explain to the people that are not familiar with the Smyrna Clayton Boys and Girls Club, but I wrote down the word dynamic, professional, dedicated, concerned, educational, well-organized, passionate, and sincere, and it's all for today's youth. And so all of you are to be admired for your dedication and time. Some are volunteers, some are paid staff, but nonetheless, at the end of the day, you get the job done. And these young people today can move on with leadership abilities and make America, I don't use America great again, make America a better place in which to live. So I appreciate your time being here. I'll open the floor for questions from any commissioners who may have one at this time. At this juncture, it's under Mr. Hall, so why don't you just take it from there, okay?
Thank you, sir. Ms. Bartlett, I think, since you're close to the mic, how many children do you serve in a normal year, not a COVID year?
Okay. We serve a couple hundred in a regular year.
And that's all
This
summer
is- this
long,
is- yes,
full
this
day,
is,
and then after school programs,
Right,
not
and after,
only
that's
at
not
your
including the
location.
teenagers,
Right.
not including teens.
Mrs. Wicks, you mentioned the roof that we also participate in the boiler.
Yes.
Yeah, don't forget to mention that. Has the Greater Smyrna Boys and Girls Clubs raised any funds for this project, for the windows?
Yes. Well, first of all, I donated my speaking fee. And it turned out to be $4,000, which I couldn't believe that. Anyway, that's the beginning of it. And Chuck Wicks's concert raised almost $8,000.
Wow.
So we have a little piece. But now, we can't do a concert. We can't do, the concert because then we're all set budget.
Right.
So we have a little bit there.
How many windows are we talking about?
About 54, I believe.
50, and they're because it's a 90-year-old building, there's going to be a considerable amount of construction to retrofit newer windows, so that's why the cost is so high.
Yes. And some of them, in today's world has to be escaped for some of them, so they have to be different windows.
Right.
Fern and Clendaniel was done many schools, and so they.
How about the state Boys and Girls Clubs? Are they helping in any way financially? The state Boys and Girls Club.
I believe they are. They have, of course, supported the club when you couldn't support the club. So when we start out in any Boys and Girls Club, you don't have the money to do anything. So the state supports their salaries, they support, they have a capital, but there's quite a few clubs around the state, and none of them have a lot of money.
Right. Yep.
I'm looking out for our club in Smyrna.
Right.
Because I think our club is probably most needy right now. There are some clubs that have got really fixed up. Milford and Dover would be two cases that have not great work. I've been working on it for 20 years. There are clubs that, and the state does help.
Yeah, they do some campaigns where they match funds and things like that, and then at the end of the year, we just have to put whoever made money into the other groups that, you know,
Right.
were struggling or in deficits, but right now, it's a little tough. We can't do
Yeah.
any fundraising, we can't do anything right now, so it's a little tough.
Oh my gosh, they're just so pathetic. It's just,
They are.
Yeah, I've been there. So Ventresca and Fern, you've worked with them for many years. So, and they're very good at what they do, and they're very generous. As
and then, you know, I mean, I was in the newspaper pointing at, you think somebody would help us do.
So this is a big ask. If we're unable to find all of the funds, is there a chance that Ventresca can come up with a phased approach to replace half the windows now?
I think so we certainly talked about that before, but I think that it will be difficult to do half set up. It'll cost us more money.
Right.
So to try to do it in this economical way, and actually during this pandemic, it's not a bad time to work on some of that.
Yeah. Do you have a plan for the students while the construction's going on?
Not yet, because we don't have the money for the construction. So we have done, so the school district graciously allowed the kids to go to one of the schools.
Right.
After school, while we did construction before, because we've done bathrooms, we've done the, rooms, we've done the HVAC, everything that you can think of, the building did not have. So we've done all of it.
Cool.
I mean, I have like, the boiler replacement, the gym floor, the HVAC, the ventilation system, the electrical and lighting, new fire and security systems, plumbing, and of course the bathrooms. The bathrooms for 6 years.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you, Commissioner Hall.
For my own part, I just wanted to follow up. I believe I heard you say that there are actually multiple projects going on, and so you've asked the town of Smyrna to address a different project, and you're asking Levy Court to address the windows. Is that right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, well, after, we'll see how this gets, and then I'll be doing the same thing. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Buxton.
I want to jump in right away. I wanted to hear some of the discussion. If you're getting ready to close the committee, then I would like to jump in. If there's further discussion, I would welcome hearing it.
No, I was getting ready to move forward to talking about a specific amount, so go ahead.
So I don't look forward to this, right? History for me, I think I'm going to just tout it just slightly. Been very, very supportive, and it's been easy to do because it's a great organization. And so the years that I've been on Levy Court, we've been able to do some pretty good things for the Boys and Girls Club, both in Dover and in Smyrna, $120-some thousand towards the Smyrna group. And so this one, the first I heard of it was this weekend when I looked at it for $150,000 to $160,000 at a time when we're going to struggle ourselves to make ends meet. And it's a big ask. It's not an unusual ask for a great organization, but it's not one that typically comes across our desk. And so I just want to express my concerns. I'm going to have concerns. If the ask is $160,000, I cannot support that. And I'm apologetic in the sense that I understand what you're dealing with. But we've put up on shelves significant spending. We've put it on freeze because of our concerns about what COVID's going to present to our budget. We just issued an emergency expenditure of maybe 150 grand. I think we have to be cautious. And although I understand they are not in the best of shape, what I would hope for, what I would have liked, again, apologizing for the fact that I'm the Grinch right now, is some kind of a capital campaign of sorts, even if it's a short-term one. I understand what you're saying. You tried it. Right. Understood. But with players involved, like the county, like the town of Clayton, like the town of Smyrna, like the state of Delaware, like XYZ corporations, all coming together to fund the windows, not just Levy Court. So I'm one commissioner. I don't pretend to be all-knowing or say what you want to hear or say it the right way. But where we are right now, given our current situation, that's my concern right now, the full extent of the cost or the ask. That's it. I'm not going to go into it any further. I'm done talking.
All right, thanks, Commissioner Buxton. Commissioner Sweeney?
Thank you, sir. Mr. Pettimonge, can you explain for the audience what the Policy 30 funds are?
Sure. Policy 30, which we refer to, is something called the Community Projects Assistance Fund. It was set up several years ago by Levy Court to have a fund available for non-county owned capital projects that come forward that are seeking assistance. And Levy Court has used those funds for various projects throughout the community, a variety of types of projects that benefit the community. The policy that guides us, the Policy 30, talks about non-county owned projects that are viewed by Levy Court to be of substantial public benefit. So that's kind of how the limitation is stated that way. And certainly the Boys and Girls Club would fall within that category. It specifically calls out educational facilities, for example, as the types of projects that could be funded through that. And so how Levy Court, if you were to choose to use the Policy 30, you probably need to determine at what level and then how we would disperse it at whatever time. That's typically what we do. If there was some type of a limit, and then some projects we've had situations where Levy Court has committed a certain amount, and once the balance is achieved and a contract is signed or something, like some evidence that the project's moving forward, that's when the funds get released. There have been other projects where you've funded it, like the dog park in Little Creek, for example. You funded essentially the whole thing. So it's really how you wish to proceed on that line.
And the current balance of that fund?
You want me to state what it is, or it's
substantial?
Well, it's over 600,000.
Okay, thank you.
I believe there's some, well, never mind, that was strategic fund. I was going to say there's some money that's been committed, but I think that's a different fund. That was for the box project. But, so, thank you.
Commissioner Howe.
Well, first of all, we're very much aware of the value of the Boys and Girls Clubs, all right? But I think that Commissioner Buxton pretty much hit the nail on the head in that we're all living in the midst of a question mark right now, okay? And one of the really adverse effects of this whole Corona thing is people can't have fundraisers for humanitarian causes, which I would say yours is preeminent in that respect. However, I wonder if we could just agree to revisit this in January. Hopefully the dust will have settled. I know that's, seems like a long time away, but we just have to be extremely careful. And if we just waited until January, then maybe we could comply in every respect. Not promising, but that would be my vote. I just don't think we should do it right now.
Mr. Pepper?
Which fund did we tap into for the tornado hurricane cleanup?
There we are using unrestricted reserves.
So it wasn't this fund.
Right.
Any other questions or comments? Commissioner Buxton?
This is more of a question again about what you raised just a moment ago. Where did we, not the contingency money for the storm, but back up to the financial contribution we made for the economic development?
Yes.
Where did that come from again then?
That's out of the Strategic Development Fund, which is a separate fund for economic development purposes, and we try to budget every year a certain amount to go in that, and then similar to this one, it positions us to be able to participate in economic development projects. That is a separate fund from this.
Development, it was how much again?
I'm sorry?
What was the total cost there again?
For economic development?
Yes.
Our commitment?
Yes.
Well, I know we have an outstanding commitment to the box outlet project, not box outlet project, but the box manufacturing project of, I believe it's 75,000. And there was also a certain amount from the strategic fund for the shoreline vinyl project, PPG project, which part of it has been let, and part of it is to be retained until they employ a certain number of people and finish improvements to the property. But those were two recent economic development projects you supported.
That was a big ask during the current climate that we're in right now at that point for an economic development project. But I was more curious of what county came after.
So normally we would vote to move this to the business meeting. But Commissioner Howe brought up the idea of delaying this. Before we even move into that, I guess for my own comments, I would say that it sounds like you made tremendous efforts to do fundraising prior to coming here. When I came in tonight, I thought maybe we could talk about doing a cost share with the town of Smyrna, but it sounds like you've already asked them to work on something else. And I agree that this sounds like it's an all or nothing, given that you would just increase costs by trying to split this into multiple projects. The economies of scale, we better to just make this into one project. I do think that, the Project 30, this is right in that lane. This is what it was intended to do. We're not tapping into operational costs. I assume we made a full, our full donation into that fund this year. I don't believe we held back on that, although it sounds like we'd be asking for about 25% of those funds. So I'm in support of it, but I guess first I would just ask, do we want to delay this, maybe a show of hands to delay this to January?
Make a general comment before you do that.
Sure.
I certainly support what all of you are doing. It's certainly critical for today's youth and moving them forward, and you need to be commended time and time again. And your effort index here tonight has been sincere and certainly dedicated. But this is a very trying time, and it would seem to me that between the General Assembly, the town of Smyrna, the town of Clayton, I know that they're all in the same position that we're in to some degree. If something could be generated contributory, for example, for every dollar that Smyrna puts in, another dollar could be put in, say, with the General Assembly, or a thermometer type situation where you can start building a thermometer where you get to 100%. And maybe that's something to think about as the future starts to evolve. But now I agree with Commissioner Howe that we may have to just not take a vote today, except to just detain it, maybe for 30, 60, 90 days, Mr. Hall, whatever you might feel comfortable, and revisit this again. It's certainly a not dead issue. It's very much alive. I think it needs to be addressed. I think we need to try and find a resolution. It doesn't appear as though we're going to find that this evening, but I think there are opportunities out there with all the brilliant folks that have spoken this evening. You've all done a great job. And this is not a no, it's just that the county is not in a financial position now to make a decision for $160,000. But I think as time goes by and things sort of get better and you have more of your fundraisers and you've got a few $1,000s set aside now, maybe Levy Court then could look at what we have available and revisit this again. But I just am making my one comment, Mr. Hall. It's up to you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, Ms. Wicks asked if she could have the floor, if she could address you.
Well, I appreciate the direction. You know, I've been here for a while. We've been talking about growth stuff for a while. I know everyone uses the pandemic for different, I'm sorry. Everyone uses the pandemic for different things that they do or do not want to do. But I can say that the children that use this building in Smyrna are suffering with no school, with the pandemic, with all the things their families are going through. And the windows are just so bad. It's just really a shame. If you can, look, I don't want to criticize a dog park, but honestly, if you can do a dog park, could you not do these windows for the Boys and Girls Club? Just breaks my heart. I'm retired. I'm not, I'm still helping this club, and these gals are right in the thick of it. But to not fund this, and everyone will use the pandemic for something, and we all are suffering with it. But the children are really suffering, and this building is suffering, and it just really, to wait till January, and then, it's so energy inefficient, and who knows who will be before me in January? I'm just saying. I just wish that you would reconsider that and fund this. Thank you. I won't irritate you anymore. Thank you.
Well, Commissioner Sweeney, I think you had
I do, thank you. Mr. Pettitange, the money that's available in the Community Projects Contribution Fund,
Yes.
it would just take a simple majority vote of Levy Court to move that back into general fund if we found ourselves in dire straits.
Yes, it's in the capital budget right now. And of course, Levy Court can amend the budget or do a budget adjustment to move funds from the capital into the operating. Sure, that's.
So during our budget discussions in March and April, we talked about possibly putting capital expenditures off until January after we had a 6-month review. And based on information that we're hearing during this whole pandemic, is there a possibility to move that up? Move the review up to a 3-month review in late September, and then bring this back, Commissioner Hall, in early October. Still gives them good weather. If it looks like our revenue is starting to tick up, still have good weather to get this done before bad weather sets in.
Certainly can be reviewed at any time. And as you know, at the end of the first quarter, which is the end of September, that's the tax deadline. So we may not have a complete tally on tax revenue yet until later into October. And Finance Department would develop that. Susan Durham would report on that, and other revenue streams. But that is right now the significant item that's being brought in right now is the tax revenue, and But yeah, when we did the budget, we kind of said we would look at our revenue picture at each quarter and see how we're doing. And when we ultimately adopted the budget, you kind of targeted the completion of the second quarter, which is December, end of December, to see how we're doing before we release or consider some of the things we built in the budget but postponed. Some of those capital projects we felt could be delayed. But it's really, we could look at it monthly. Yeah.
Thank you.
And Commissioner Buxton.
Thank Dr. Wicks, I appreciate your comments and your passion, and I understand it. I don't fault you for saying it. I didn't vote for the dog park, but I did vote for $120,000 in total twice in support of this specific club and didn't blink because it was a necessity and we weren't in a dire straight situation, and I probably wouldn't blink this time. But we are in a tough spot. And I don't think it's really fair to say that you can vote for dog park, not children, because in your words, it's the appearance, not the functionality, versus the roof, which was leaking, and the boiler, which was broke. And I don't want to get into a debate about how bad they are. I just know that what we're dealing with and the circumstances, and look, we've got to answer not only to constituents, to you, but to the employees who are looking at that shelf and every one of the employee benefits that they didn't get because of our concerns. So, again, I hate to be the Grinch. I don't enjoy it at all, but that's why I stand where I am. If you want to delay it, that's fine. Take a look at it later, 3 months, 6 months. I don't know if that fixes it, but I'm not opposed to the ask. I'm just not now. Thanks.
Any other questions or comments? So at this point, just based on the sense of the comments, I guess I'll ask for a show of hands to see if we want to move this forward to the business meeting, and if we decide not to, then that would be, or do you want me to just simply withdraw it from the agenda?
I'll have to defer to the county administrator, county attorney. I would think that we've heard pretty much the comments of the various commissioners. I just don't know if it'd be appropriate to put a time frame on it at this time. We could just delay action at this time and then resurface it at a time that would be more convenient and more acceptable as time moves on. As Mr. Buxton said, it's not a gloom and doom, but it's just not a good situation they're involved in, and so we need to be careful. For example, with our employees, there were things that they should have gotten, and they didn't get them. And there are certain obligations that we should have made in regard to construction projects of our own, and we've sidetracked those to some degree. So we have a lot of things out there on the back burner that have not yet been addressed, and hopefully we're going to try and address them in December. But unfortunately, they would come first, and we have to see how that works out. So I don't know the recommendation that I would suggest you make. You might want to check with the county attorney or the Mr. Pedamage as to the most appropriate way to handle that.
I think a couple of options. One, of course, would be to release it from committee and move it forward for later tonight. Another option would be just to table it here, where it would stay inside the committee, and then it could be re-examined at some appropriate time in 90 days or 120 days or more. I think that's really the two options that you have right now.
Thank you, Mr. Elias. And Mr. Hall, I think that's what would be most appropriate is to do what the county attorney has recommended and move forward in that direction.
All right, Mr. President. Well, then I'll move to table this for 120 days. Seven up. You got 7 votes to table it for the time being. Is there any? We appreciate your attendance tonight, and hope to see you back here again sometime. We'll get with you. Is there any public comments on this item?
Any
No,
public?
we just want to thank you for just allowing us to be able to come and speak to you. I really appreciate you guys doing that and even letting us come back in 120 days. I can totally understand with everything that's going on. So we still would like to thank you all.
Appreciate your being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So much. It's Mr. Hall's committee, but are there any other public comments? Any other public comments? If not, you need to adjourn the committee and turn it back to me, sir.
All right, Mr. President, back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Under Planning Services Committee, first item under Mr. Buxton.
Now, Ms. Kiefer's going to join us again.
Thank you, Commissioners. Commissioner Sweeney actually gave a preview of this item earlier. Thank you very much. This is Ordinance LC 2007, which would adopt the 2018 Property Maintenance Code. Now, normally the Property Maintenance Code is just wrapped up into the Building Code adoption, but because we wanted to take advantage of the enabling legislation that allows us to issue tickets for violation, we pulled it out and we put everything into just the property maintenance chapter of the code. The 2018 Property Maintenance Code itself doesn't look a lot different from the 2012 functionally. Administratively, though, I've highlighted in the cover memo 4 items, 2 of them related. One goes back to enforcement within municipalities that Commissioner Sweeney brought up earlier. It's not unusual for us to get requests from very small towns to help with code enforcement because they just don't have the capacity to do it. And it's easier administratively for us to do it if we can use our own code rather than interpret their own. So that's included, and it calls for formal action by the mayor and council and then formal approval by the levy court. Again, as I mentioned, it incorporates what the state enabled for us to be able to issue tickets for enforcement, and it creates a civil penalty structure that actually, all of that mimics Newcastle County's because all of the enabling legislation is identical as well. And then we also included a standard for maintenance of trees and shrubs that it had been a concern periodically here, and we cribbed it from another county where it seems to work. And we articulated exemptions for natural areas, right? So we can specifically say farms and natural areas, woodlands, are not subject to the tall grass standard. Because functionally they're not, this makes it official. So those are the most substantial administrative pieces of it. The actual pieces of property maintenance, what we enforce on a day-to-day basis, aren't changing. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
I'll go with the first one, and then I'm sure Commissioner Sweeney wants to reiterate what he already reiterated. It's okay. And mine is just for the general public statement, if anybody's listening. We're not going to become a fine-heavy county. It's going to be an effective tool. We're excited about the opportunity, but our path forward traditionally starts with talking to the person who's in violation, correct?
Step 1 is just contact, right? We don't even leave a violation notice the first time. We leave a sticker on the door saying, please call us. And then we make the violation official, just so we have a record. And if someone's working with us, and I think all of you have been involved in these at one time or another, if people are working with us, we don't proceed with official action, we just stay in contact with you. Right now, if you're not working with us and you're not working toward compliance, our only method is to go to JP court. And we've been successful with it, but it's time consuming, ties up the court's time. What ticketing does is give us sort of a middle step between making contact, issuing a violation notice, and going to court. It is another tool.
Yeah, Commissioner Sweeney.
Thanks, sir. So Sarah, under 106.3.1, the administrative enforcement, it says that administrative enforcement shall be commenced within 3 years. Does that mean if we don't find it in 3 years, we can't enforce that property maintenance issue.
No, I mean, any day that there's a violation on the property is a new day.
Okay.
I think that would mean if it's cleaned up, we can't go after you later.
Right.
If you've gotten compliant.
Good. Okay, so under the section 106.3.1.2.1, which is the new procedure for fining for code violations, can you kind of go over that real quick? What the process would be if somebody is found to be in violation?
And they're not coming into compliance.
Correct.
Right. So this
Yep.
is down the road. We can issue a ticket. You can pay the ticket. You cannot pay the ticket, and eventually we'll either put a lien on your property or put it on your tax bill. You can appeal the ticket. And what we've set up is using the building code appeals board rather than creating a whole new appeals board. So if we've issued you a ticket and you dispute, you think you're not in violation, you can appeal to them. If it's hardcore and you're just ignoring us and continuing not to comply and you're not appealing, we can keep issuing you tickets. My sense, and we'll see as we use it, my sense is if you're still ignoring us with tickets, we're going to have to take you to court.
Right.
So it's an attention getter more than anything else, I think, in most cases. That's my sense, and we'll see how it plays out. And
Okay.
because this is new to us,
Right.
it's not unlikely that we'll be using this for a while and come back to you and ask for some revisions depending on how things work out.
So we have, I suspect we'll have some growing pains.
I'm sorry?
Growing pains.
We're
And I
gonna have
get
to,
that.
yeah, we'll have to integrate it, we'll have to get used to it.
So for example, on a structure without a permit, they have 48 hours to fix the problem. If at the 48 hours, they still haven't come in, now are they?
We can issue a ticket.
And that 48 hours start from the minute we put that posting on the property that they're in violation?
As soon as you're notified, as soon as we've issued you notice. And depending on, when you're talking building without a permit, you're potentially talking an unsafe situation, so we
Right.
take that exceptionally seriously. So we're gonna go out of our way to track you down.
Okay. So within that 48 hours, the property owner has the ability to appeal or to write a letter or to come in and see us and say, look, here's why I'm out of code. And we can address that administratively. It doesn't have to go to Board of Variance and Adjustments or RPC or anybody. Okay.
Always, yes.
So the one question I had concerning that section was for a second ticket for the same infraction issued within 1 year of the date of the violation. That's not a year waiting until that comes up, correct? That's if we go back out there. What's the time frame between going from the $50 to $75 to $100? Is it going to be the time frame that's associated with the violation? Like unregistered vehicles is 10 days. We go out after 10 days, they haven't fixed it, it's a $50 fine. 10 days later, we go out, they haven't fixed it, it's now 75. 10 days later, we go out and it's 100. Because they have not resolved the issue.
Right, it's within 1 year of the initial violation.
Okay. Then the only other, as far as that section is concerned, we're not making any effort to notify the homeowner that you're in violation, you have a fine, you had 12 months to pay it. We're not going to notify them. Is there any way to implement a process that says, as we're getting close to their 12-month, that last sentence, 12-month period, that we don't have to send notice to them? Is there any way for us to provide notice?
Oh, this language actually mimics.
Oh, it does say that, yep. You're
what
right.
exists for tall grass right now.
Okay, so my question is that 12-month, is that going to be successful? Is that what we do in other cases?
With tall grass, the way it works is and we do it from like May to May because that's what our contract is for grass cutting. So it's a normal calendar for us. So if you've got a tall grass violation, we notify you, you don't cut the grass, we cut the grass for you. We don't notify you again in that 12-month period. If you have a tall grass violation, we just go out and cut it and keep billing you.
Okay, thank you. So last question. Section 302.4.1, trees outside of wooded areas, all trees shall be free from dead limbs or branches, and dead trees shall be removed. That's a tough one.
It is.
How do you propose that we're going to enforce that?
The same way we enforce everything else,
Like
right? I
with-
mean, it's more difficult to measure. But to be honest, our most successful code enforcement has nothing to do with going to court or issuing violations. It's having a conversation with homeowners. Those are the ones you guys don't hear about because they don't become an issue.
Right.
But it's, our guys go talk to the homeowners, we get people to clean up. So I'm cautiously optimistic that'll be the case in most. There will be a handful where
Yep.
we've got a property owner complaining and we've got a property owner potentially in violation, and we will have a conflict. It's possible for particularly something like dead trees, because we are not arborists. We're gonna have to bring in expertise from our friends at Department of Ag and Forestry. We'll see how it plays out. It's, in terms of the complaints we're getting, it's relatively minimal. So it's not like the tall grass complaints, the unregistered vehicle complaints, the stuff that is really what we get most of the time.
Okay.
So it's a small fraction, I think, of what we see.
I have 5 right now.
You're the only one I'm hearing from.
So I have 5,
So
and
countywide, it's still a
yes,
fraction.
very small, absolutely, I get that. Mike Rigby in the parks, is Mike Rigby, isn't he a certified arborist? So there you go, you have a
Then-
resource there that you can take advantage of.
I'll be calling on our friends in community services.
Perfect. That's great. I like to see that teamwork. So with the trees, what if the trees are in a sewer easement? Does at some point planning step back and say, nope, that's a public works issue? And I'm sorry, Ms. Golt's not here to answer that, but or does she use this same code in order to enforce that type of growth in the easement?
Mike, because I am not familiar with that easement language, I don't know what it called for. Easements are on private property,
Yes.
which is what we address. So it's possible in that situation, if we had this language and Public Works has language in their easement, we could work together to make something happen.
Perfect.
But I don't know, I can't speak specifically because I haven't seen the easement.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
You're welcome.
Other, Mr. Pepper?
Just a simple question.
Riveted by Commissioner Sweeney. I got lost in it.
I do have, when he's done, I do have one more question. Sorry about that.
Just a simple question. When you violate somebody, what does that look like? Do you have something looks like a traffic ticket that you issue, or you send them a letter, or how do they know that they've been violated?
Sure. It's 2 things. We can post the property and we send a letter. And it's sort of a form letter. It's you, property owner, are in violation of this section of the code. Contact us. You have X number of days to rectify the situation. Please contact us here. And when we go fully digital, which will be the phase after we finish building permits, then we can include photos and all of that in the documentation to the homeowner.
So it's very similar to what City of Dover does.
I think so, yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Sweeney?
Thank you, sir. I don't think violate them was the word you wanted to use. We're not violating anybody, but if Scott Tanner came on my property to violate me, he's getting whatever he wants. So Sarah, concerning the portion of the code that allows us to take over the code enforcement for a small town or whomever asks us, it's not considered an MOU, but if that town passes I guess it would be an
A
MOU.
resolution?
Yeah. Yes. A resolution that states, can they have specific caveats to them that may not be the same for Woodside or Kenton or any of the other towns that we...
Possibly.
The only reason I ask is Viola's town wants the code violation to come to the town first. And I suspect it's so that they can address it with the owner and say, look, if you don't do this, county's coming in. It makes us the bad guy I get that.
Oh, yeah,
but-
that's fine.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
That's actually our preference.
Okay,
To
perfect.
When we're working with a town, it's much easier if we're hearing from a representative of the town.
And all the requests for us to get involved with a code violation would come from that body.
That's easier for us to manage.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions?
President Ben, you sure you don't want in? Any other questions for Ms. Kiefer? All right. So, show of hands to move this one forward. Seeing 7-0, we'll move on to the next one, Ms. Kiefer.
Certainly.
All right.
The next item was just a topic for discussion. I wrote an ordinance just in case, depending on what Levy Court wants to do. The county has required, for certainly longer than I've worked for the county, street bonds for public subdivision streets. So before you can start getting building permits, you have to bond street construction, or at least the top coat, at 150% of the cost of construction. The Department of Transportation has their own bonding requirements as well for public streets. Periodically, over the years, developers have suggested that it's not fair, that we're forcing them to give us a bond and the state is forcing them to give them a bond, and the streets are not actually the county's to regulate anyway. So in the last couple of weeks, I guess the end of July, Commissioner Pepper convened a meeting on behalf of a developer who had questions, and some members of DelDOT were there as well. And for years when this has come up, DelDOT has said, please don't get rid of the requirement because we need the supplemental cash. If we have to finish a street, we don't have enough money, the county's escrow or bond help us offset the cost. But in this meeting, the representatives from DelDOT seem to dismiss the need for the county contribution. So Commissioner Pepper asked just that it be put on an agenda for discussion. I will offer, and Mr. Pedramaj brought this up during leadership this afternoon, there is some risk if the county were to eliminate our bonding requirement for roads. While DelDOT seems to have a fund or surplus fund to help offset the cost of road construction when they have to finish roads, there are definitely examples where they run out of that fund. I think the example used in that meeting was Newcastle County, and they had to rely on a legislator to come up with the balance. So there's some risk in making sure projects can get done, but there is also an argument that roads are not the county's responsibility, at least public roads. So that's just an overview. Certainly Commissioner Pepper may have something to add.
Commissioner Pepper jumps in first of all. Nice work. I know we've looked at this in the past, and as clearly was stated, DelDOT was not receptive, but appears Mr. Pepper's got a little juice, got that thing done. Good on you. I talked to you about this afternoon, and now that's a little different than what we had spoken about, I think, because the only question that I had was, it's good, we want to make it more friendly to build, while at the same time recognizing that there are examples of where this situation has hurt us in the past, where there's not been enough funds, where maybe there's been a challenge to get the developer to finish out. It's not routine, but it has happened. Anyway, that's the ask tonight from the commissioners, maybe Mr. Pepper and Mr. Pettit-Dimash, you just raised this. Do we eliminate it in its totality? Do we knock it down a percentage? Look, I'm in favor of knocking it all the way out. But I also want to make sure that 5 years from now, they don't come back and say, you guys screwed this one up big time. We don't have roads in our development, and it's all going back to the fact that you eliminated this code. So I'm in favor of the move. I'm also in favor of making sure it's the right move. So there we go. Mr. Pepper? Sure.
Yeah, it was brought to my attention that this really affects the small developer that has maybe one street that they're developing on a corner of their farm or something along those lines. And what's happening is they have to get these bonds or letter of credit from their banks. And what that does, it ties up their credit. And the people that I've talked to that have the problem with this is they feel it's like having one car, but having two insurance policies to insure the same car. That's how they broke it down. And for, what it's costing them is around $5,000 a year just for a small bond. And they have to pay that every year until it's, the road is finished. And that's not done until you get a certain amount of houses complete on the road. So they just feel that this isn't fair. And I might also point out that Kent County is the only county in Delaware that does that, requires this. Sussex County doesn't require it. Newcastle County doesn't require it. So, you can look at it as part of being a hindrance to people want to do business in Kent County. Look at it from that perspective. You can look at it from a perspective of, is this fair? Especially when DelDOT comes in, 3 of them from DelDOT came in to this meeting, and they all said, we really don't need the county's money. And they were the ones that pointed out to us that we are the only county that does it. And they said that they have funds to supplement when the amount of bond is not enough to complete a project. And so with that being said, and and then with the person coming into hearing them say that, I mean, it sounds like it's a matter of fairness. It's small developers or small businessmen is tying their money up where they can't do other projects, or this one particular person, he has numerous businesses. And this not only ties up that one little development that he's got, but it's also tying up him spending money developing other businesses in the county, or throughout the state, actually. And so I just look at it as a matter of fairness. And if DelDOT says, hey, we don't need it, and we're the only county in Kent County or only county in Delaware that does this or requires this, then he had a good argument. And I wanted to bring it forward to the commissioners. And now, what I would suggest is this only pertained to roads that were being turned over to DelDOT, built to DelDOT specs. Other roads that are to remain private or privately maintained, this bond should be in effect. And because we do have a few of those roads throughout the county, and they do need the bond in place to cover them. But if DelDOT says they're going to cover it, and they just listed off 3 developments in Kent County that they didn't come to us for our bond money, and they completed the projects. And a couple of those were developments where the leftover developments from where the original developers went bankrupt or fled the state or what have you. But DelDOT just completed those projects. They were fairly good-sized projects. So with them assuring us that, and they also stated they would give us a letter on each one of our projects to come through, stating that they didn't need our bond money, so that they would cover it. So that's I thought that was an important part that they brought up too. So.
Right.
So that's where I'm coming from, and I see it as a fairness thing. It holds up people's money, businessmen's money, and DelDOT don't need it, and it's the only county in the state requires it.
I'm glad DelDOT's changed their mind, and I won't argue with your points. I'll just simply concur. Commissioner Angel.
Thank you, Commissioner Buxton. What would have been really great to have tonight would be that letter from DelDOT, though. DelDOT is a state agency. The state changes their mind when things change. I like to have that letter as evidence that they're going to do that, so that we have something we can hang your shingle on, and then then.
They're going to do a letter for each development, not a broad letter.
Well, I think we need to have the letter, though, saying they're willing to do that as evidence that for our meeting before I vote on it. I just feel that having something that they're going to do it gives us credence and credibility, too, for us. Because people change. Things change. I want to make sure I have something in my hand that says they're going to do it.
We could vote on this moving forward and contingent to having that letter in place by the time we, instead of tabling it or anything right now, we could move it forward.
If I might? Right. If the ordinance goes forward and gets introduced tonight, it still has to go to the Planning Commission. We could send the ordinance itself over to DelDOT to get their endorsement, if that's helpful. Does that answer the concern?
That's fine.
Okay, we'll do that, provided it goes forward.
Fairly confident in the way both of you interpreted the meeting. I'm very excited about it. So, excited meaning, good. It's a good news thing. So, I'm ready to move it up. Mr. Pettit-Dimash.
Thank you, Mr. Buxton. I feel compelled to just say something about this because I've got a bit of experience with it. The way I view the performance bond is it's a guarantee. It is a surety to people who are buying property in developments where improvements are not finished, that somebody is guaranteeing that it's going to get finished. And that's the purpose of the completion bond. No developer is required to put up a bond until they sell a house or property to somebody else before the roads are finished. If all the roads were finished up front, no one would have to put a bond up. So the idea is if the homeowner buys a house, they're focused on the home, the road's not finished, and the developer tries to bail out before the road's finished, the county has resources to finish the road or to pressure, the developer to complete what they said they were going to do. In my experience, had I had the opportunity to use that, yes, not necessarily to take the money to do the project, but to use it as pressure to get the work done. And I understand that it locks people. Usually, they don't really do a classic sense of bond anymore. It's a letter of credit from a bank that says they have the resources in reserve to cover the debt on completion of the road. And so it's a consumer. I view it as a consumer protection measure that the county instituted a long time ago. I don't know if there was a history years ago which led the county to do that. Perhaps there was. But in Sussex County, for example, as I understand it, the subdivision streets are all private, so there's not an issue here. It's not a public facility. I've never seen anything from DelDOT that's like a policy that says they will back up every road that is proposed. Every subdivision, except for the little minor ones in Kent County, are public streets, are supposed to be public streets, dedicated to public use and ultimately owned by DelDOT. My experience is that DelDOT won't accept responsibility for them until they're complete 100% finished. So I would be concerned about the last house gets sold, the top coat's not there, and suddenly everyone disappears and goes on to the next development, and the LLC doesn't exist anymore, and that sort of thing. That's the scenario. So I'm not trying to kill this idea, but I think that's why you have the bonds in place. It's to protect against that scenario. As seldom as it may occur, it can occur, and it has occurred.
So we're in committee. That's why it's valuable to have Commissioner Pepper's conversation. It's valuable to have Ms. Kiefer, Mr. Pettit-Dimash chime in. You don't want to trip. You don't want to make a mistake. I am intrigued by the fact that Newcastle County doesn't also ask. Maybe they do something differently that ensures it. I'm also intrigued by the letter from the state saying that no, they don't see the need, because with them putting that on the line that they don't see the need and they own the streets, then that's telling me they have a responsibility, a legal responsibility to go after the developer who walks away. I would think the letter positions us for that. I mean, I don't know how it wouldn't. You know,
Right.
if you've put on record that they don't need us to duplicate their insurance, and that they're stating in a letter that they'll make sure that the roads get built out. And if the roads don't get built out, then I would hope that it lies in their lap. But Mr. Pettit-Demas put up a good point. Yes,
Hey, Mr.
sir.
Buxton, and along that line, if the letter, and I haven't seen it, but or whatever policy DelDOT has, if it does say that in the event there's a default and there's no developer anymore, that they are still going to take over the road and own it and fix it. I think that's what you want, because my experience has been DelDOT will not assume maintenance responsibility until the road is complete. So if that's changed, and that's significant change. And if it is changed, that's great. And I agree, then it relieves our worry over it. That's a big
Ms. Kiefer, and
thing to
then
take on by the state, though.
Ms. Kiefer, Mr. Sweeney, and then Commissioner Angel after that. Oh, sorry about that. And then Commissioner Hall. Good.
I just wanted to add on to what Mr. Pettit-Demas said. I'm certainly happy to pull the subdivision street regs, because I think that's where they call out the bonds. There's no question that their policy for a very long time was they wouldn't finish streets.
I'm sorry, that what?
The DelDOT's policy was they would not finish streets. They would just let them go. Since 2009, I think the pressure has been such that they don't have a choice but to finish them. So I don't know if that's official, all right? I don't know if they wrote that down anywhere, and I'm happy to go look, because I think it's worth investigating. Functionally, that's what they've been doing, I think, because they get the political pressure to do it. But we'll go hunting. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. So Sarah, the DelDOT street bond, that's like 150% of the cost. What is it?
It is, I can't remember their percentage. It is based, I believe, primarily on the entrance. And this gets back to the risk I mentioned earlier. And in that meeting, DelDOT admitted they don't bond at a rate high enough, which is why they have this extra money. So no, we're at 150% of the cost of completion for roads and any improvements in a subdivision. They are at a different percentage. Their formula is completely different from us.
So in your experience, the Kent County bond has never been called for completion of streets?
We've called it.
We've called it as a threat, but has it ever been used?
No, we've called it. There are a handful of circumstances where we've called, I think it's primarily been letters of credit, where DelDOT will call us and say, can we get your money to supplement theirs? And based on what they said in that meeting a few weeks ago, I think they're taking our money and putting it in the slush fund.
All right, so in Commissioner...
Yeah.
So in Commissioner Pepper's, in the case of what Mr. Pepper said, where the developer has to pay 2 fees to the bank to keep that bond, well, the letter open, there's actually that much fees associated with a letter that says the money is available. Is it because there's so much? For example, could we reduce our 150% to 50% of the cost to complete the roads? Because my concern is DelDOT won't accept the roads because there's damage to the gutters, there's damage to drainage. DelDOT won't go in there and complete the roads until those are fixed. And it's happened that the homeowners were now responsible for fixing those gutters and the curbs before DelDOT would come in and finish the roads. If we did 50% of the cost of completing the roads, that money could be used to help the homeowners to bring the roads up to speed. Because we're going to have developers that are going to go out of business. It's happened in the Ponds, Wyoming, that I'm aware of, and happened in Longacre. So the developer went away, had no way for the subdivision to come in and fix the roads, because they didn't have any money. They weren't collecting any HOA fees at the time before Delta would come in and finish the roads. So, I mean, if we move to 50%, is that large fee that you discussed, is that based on the amount, or is it just a straight up fee for?
It's based on the amount. And like I said, that letter of credit, that ties up their credit.
Right.
So whatever, if it's $1 million, they gotta have $1 million in reserve to cover that letter of credit. And that's the money they wanted to use to do other things.
So the letter of credit or the bond for amenities, is that at 100%, or is that also a higher percentage?
Everything the county does is 150%.
150%.
To account for inflation.
Right.
Because those are given to us early on in the project.
Okay. So, I mean, if we could lower our percentage to something less, that would cover incidentals with having to, bless you, that would have to, to fix the roads up to speed so that Delta can come in and finish them with the bond. Just spitballing.
Next, is it Commissioner Hall?
Well, I just want to confirm, because what I heard at the beginning of this was that neither Sussex nor Newcastle County do this. And it seems to me that DelDOT is outsourcing its risk management to us. And what they do with it is indeterminable. So I like the idea of getting out of that line of business, in terms of economic development, as a sign of being pro-business. So but I want to follow up that we're the only county that does this. So somehow, some way, in the other two counties, if the developer doesn't finish the work's getting done, I assume, and it's probably getting done through DelDOT. So, thanks.
I'd like to know what the apples to apples is. And I think Sussex County it was just explained, maybe traditionally the developments are maintained by the developer themselves. There's no state roads. I was surprised to learn that. Is that?
Yeah, virtually all subdivision streets in Sussex are private, and I believe Sussex just adopted fairly recently standards for bonding, but it's all their world. They're all private roads.
In Newcastle, something's going on there. They've got something going on.
I'm happy to look into it if we want to get more detail.
Yeah.
I know Newcastle County is heavy on performance bonds for a lot of other things. I'm not sure about the scenario with the street itself, but the UDC has all kinds of requirements for improvements to subdivisions that they have to put up a guarantee that they're going to do what they say they're going to do. So I don't think it's where they don't do any kind of bonds at all. I'm not sure about the streets itself, but I've seen bonds for sidewalks, curbing, landscaping, open space, parks, all sorts of other things.
Yeah.
So I think maybe where we are tonight, maybe, and then we can keep discussing a little bit, is a little more clarity from DelDOT on exactly what it is that the outcome of this decision is. What will it do? Because our concern, DelDOT, is that we make this change because we'd like to. Who doesn't want to? But what happens down the road? How can DelDOT assure us that, no, you're fine? We don't need two insurance policies. It's our streets. We've got insurance policies, and we're confident we'll be able to meet that. If they can say that, and it appears they did in that meeting, then I think we should move forward. I do. But I think they need to tell us that. They need to say that the current system you have, and even the concerns presented by Mr. Pettit-Damage and others, we're okay. DelDOT says, we're okay, we've got this. Does that make any sense? Right?
With the flexibility that as soon as DelDOT says, yeah, we're not doing it anymore, we can immediately pick it up.
Or the alternative method could be a smaller percentage, so at least the credit and the fee is cut in half or something like that. So we're not vacating the position altogether. Maybe we're just lessening the insurance policy, the second one. So those are two options. The question then becomes, are we able to move this forward as it exists now? Is this a timely issue for you, Mr. Pepper? It is, yeah. So can we get some information about the things that we've discussed tonight and have it available for prior to the RPC meeting? Or can we get this back on quickly? I'm looking for your guidance also, Mr. Pepper. What are your thoughts, given what you've heard tonight?
Yeah, I think this is, time is of the essence. I mean, the one person that I talked to, his money he's got put out is due now. So if we don't do something until later on, he's got to put the money out, and then 6 months from now, or 2 months from now, 1 month from now, we say we're not going to require it anymore, then he's put out the money for a whole year, because they don't prorate it. They have to pay a year in advance. I think we need to deal with it as soon as possible.
What I would say there, not to be, obviously the obvious point is that we don't want to make legislation for specific cases, individual, but that's not what you're saying, I get it. So we need to be cautious as we proceed. And so the question goes back to Ms. Kiefer and then back to Mr. Pepper to say, the assurance tonight and moving forward doesn't guarantee success of the outcome. Doesn't in any way for me right now. If I voted to move this forward, what I'm not voting for is a thought that I'm going to vote in favor of it when it comes back to me. Because if I don't get these answers presented, or if DelDOT backs away from their confidence, then I'm no longer in favor of it. Then maybe what I'm in favor of is a 50% rule or something like that, is what I would state for the record, so that when it does come back here, if it does, that it's very clear that no, tonight I'm in favor of looking at this with some more information. I'm in favor of moving it forward in front of the RPC with that information. And I'm definitely saying for the record that when it comes back to me, if these concerns aren't addressed, that I would vote no. So, okay.
Just in terms of timing, right? Because we're talking about public hearing notices. One of the reasons we had suggested introduction tonight, if you wanted to move forward, was we can have it's already ready to go in the September set of hearings. That gives us time between, if you introduce tonight, it gives us time to go get the additional information and we can discuss it. And honestly, if we want to drop back, if somebody's not comfortable, we have that flexibility. But we wait and we lose flexibility to add to agendas, is the caution I would offer. And that shifts us to October.
It's a good move, right? And if it holds water, and it's a good move, then I'd hate to have time get in the way of it, right? And we still have confidence that it could come back to us and not be a good move, and we could totally just say, sorry, it didn't work. So I think it's probably best that we move on it tonight, with the idea that it might not hold water. So we're good with that? So, yeah, go ahead, Commissioner Angel.
Well, first of all, Mr. Pettimage brought up some good points, and Mr. Pepper and I had a good talk, and he kind of won me over at that time. But like I said, that letter tonight would have been the icing on the cake for me to move forth, because people change, things change, and we have something in writing that's evidence what they're saying. So I got to hands that. I do like Mr. Sweeney's 50% if we have to compromise somewhere. And again, there's an old saying too. It's always, it's kind of funny, but you can't be just a little bit pregnant. Either you are or you aren't. So I want to make sure I have all the documentation, so I know where to vote and how to vote, and so I know what to do. To me, that's tangible evidence that I need to have to make this a viable point of interest for us. So then, like I said, if we have to go to a 50%, that was also proposed, I'm willing to do that too. But I want to see that letter. I think we need to have that letter.
Okay, so we're going to take a vote to move forward. Acknowledge that everything that you said, Commissioner Angel, will be available the night that you actually vote on this. So we'll have that. Yeah. Are we clear on your directive and did we give enough information for you to move forward to the RPC and those things?
Well, I mean, it's already, in case this happened, we've already got it on that schedule.
Yeah.
But to be sure, what you're looking for is written confirmation from DelDOT that they have no objection to us eliminating our bonding requirement for public streets. Is that correct?
Yeah, that they're confident, it won't get in the way of their confidence that the streets will get finished. What a secondary type of a solution might look at. Maybe a little more investigation, if you could look into that too, as to what it is, what a $5,000 fee is, what causes that? Is it the total number? And would 50% reduction or 75% or whatever the number still give us money and still get protection? Or still give protection and still give relief? So that's where we
I
are.
mean, that's always going to give us a little extra money if DelDOT were to need it, if we were to alter their percentage. So.
Just a secondary one. I don't even know if that needs to be weighed in or figured out. I think the letter will be useful for the RPC. I don't know if the percentage one can be presented to them, might cloud the waters. I think it's something that we would need at Levy Court if it comes back to us.
Okay,
Right.
we'll definitely work to get the letter from DelDOT so we have confirmation in writing. And provided it gets introduced tonight, we'll keep it moving forward.
So show of hands to move forward based on the conversation. Okay, 7-0.
Could I mention one thing to Sarah? I don't know if they'll do it, but one way to approach it would be to get them to state that maybe our bonding requirement is superfluous in light of their responsibilities to finish streets and so forth. Maybe frame it like that.
Thank you.
All right, well, that, and no more comments. We voted on. Any public comments? Nothing, no one on the phone? All right, so seeing none, Mr. President, back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Buxton. We have no old business under new business. Mr. Buxton.
Okay, introduction of ordinance LC 20-05. It's an ordinance to amend the comprehensive plan map designation in the official zoning map of Kent County, Delaware, pursuant to the provisions of Kent County Code Volume 2, Chapter 205 zoning, Article 3, Section 205-8, Section 205-9, Articles 28, changes and amendments effective December 1st, 2000 as amended, reference CZ-20-02 for public hearing on Tuesday, September 8, 2020, Tuesday, September 29, 2020 at 7 p.m.
Thank you, Mr. Buxton. Next item has been removed from the business session. Next item on review, Mr. Buxton.
Reading 101, introduction of ordinance LC 20-07, 2018 Property Maintenance Code. It's an ordinance to amend the Kent County Code Volume 1, Chapter 175, Property and Maintenance, to formally adopt the 2018 Property Maintenance Code published by the International Code Council with amendments and establish civil penalties for non-compliance. It's for public hearing on Tuesday, September 15th, 2020 at 7 p.m. And the next one is an introduction of ordinance LC 20-08, street bonds. It's an ordinance to amend the Kent County Code Volume 2, Chapter 187, subdivision and land development as amended, Articles 10, required improvements, 187-55, completion bond, and Articles 13, enforcement of penalties for 187-83, building and occupancy permits, guarantees and guarantees, can't read, in order to modify the requirement for street bonds and clarify additional items for which bonds may be required. For public hearing on Tuesday, September 29th, 2020 at 7 p.m. I have one question, and it just to make life a little easier, although that isn't too difficult. Is that required, Craig? Is it required that I read it in its entirety? The actual ordinance? It's a routine thing that we do here, but I didn't know if it was required.
In my opinion, it
Fair
can
enough.
be read like the legislature does by title only. For example, the last one would just say introduction, of ordinance LC 20-08 street bonds. I think that would work.
It is a game changer, gentlemen. The butcher guarantees in quarantine. Me, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Buxton. Great job for the last period of time. Thank you. Under informational items, Mr. Pedamage. Any information? All right? We don't have executive session. No. So any public comments? Any public comments? Anybody still on the line?
No one on the line.
Any commissioner comments? Yes, Mr. Howe.
Yeah, I wanted to make a correction and an apology earlier when we were recognizing Sherry Barker's retirement. I'm sorry, I was trying to read and listen at the same time. I didn't do either one of them very well, but regret that. She served 20 years, and I doubt she's listening, but I do wish her the best, and I wish I had said it at the right time. So I'm sorry. I just blame it on my youthful inexperience.
COVID.
Thank you, Mr. Howe. Mr. Sweeney.
Thank you, sir. On August 4th, we were hit by a hurricane, Isaias, and a tornado. And since that date, the communities and neighbors and friends and family have all come out quite a bit to help clean up. So I'd like to, number one, thank Alan Angel for his use of his tractor. He's been out on a lot of days, and some of those trunks are pretty big to move. And it's with his foot, he helped out in the way he could. So I just want to say appreciate it. Another person in chambers tonight is Clint Brothers. Clint, thanks for coming out. Very much appreciated. I know the neighbors appreciated it, and I think we've done a great job there. And there's nobody listening online right now. We're doing it again Saturday, 8 to 12 on Saturday. So if you guys want to come out and just move some sticks around, feel free, 8 to 12 on Saturday. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Sweeney. Great job for all the commissioners that have been partakers of that situation that developed. Mr. Angel.
Thank you, sir. Also, Commissioner Sweeney, Mr. Pepper, and I also were at the town of Clayton for the clock that we gave $10,000 for them to put up. And it's a beautiful clock. It was a hot day for that organized, but it is a beautiful clock. I think it's going to be something to bring people together. I hope it does the same thing like our memorial did here on Levy Court. I also want to commend Commissioner Sweeney and Clint. We're working together side by side, helping their neighbors. You usually don't see opponents that friendly, but it was very well noticed, and I had to say that too. So I also want to thank Pastor Jeff for what he's done to formalize and get this going, and I want to thank Mr. Hall for also organizing too. His area. I was able to work with the Rubicon people over there for almost 4 hours. And then today, well, actually, it was supposed to be yesterday, but I guess they finished up quick and moved on before I got there. But I was able to put in 5 hours again today in Lincoln Park after I heard from Commissioner Buxton that area needed. I was actually in that area yesterday, and I was turned down 7 times by the people. They were waiting for Rubicon. They weren't waiting for me. So, because I couldn't get off the tractor to help. I could pick things up and move them, but Rubicon had to cut and then help load the trailer up, or the tractor up. So, just wanted to let you know that they've also got my number to call me. And they're also extending it a week. That's how much more work they have to do. And I've already told them, call me. I will do what I can to help wherever possible. Or something else. Also, I've also, I was given the National Leadership Academy. They gave me a $1,950 scholarship free because they canceled the one in Washington, D.C. in June. I have now applied for that, and it starts in September and graduates December 18th. So I'm now on the road for that. That's a 3 to 5 hour course till December. So just to let you know. And there may be a time where I may be a little late getting here, because of that course. I just want to make sure everybody knows why. Thank you. Oh, and Mr. Pendermoss, you'll be getting an invoice rather, but it'll be an invoice for $00. But you'll be coming here.
We'll pay it
So
right away.
you know.
We'll pay it right away.
Okay.
Any other commissioner comments? Mr. Hall?
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to also recognize all the staff from County Administrator Diana Gold, Chief Faulkner, Jill Johns in planning, the level of detail, minute by minute, 10 feet by 10 feet of dumpster placement. It's an impressive effort. I talked to Mike Perkowski for quite a while on Sunday afternoon, and I just want to recognize him because he's gone far above and beyond to manage the dumpsters from DSWA. So I just wanted to point that out this evening because that's been a big help for the folks out there that have been affected by this.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Any other commissioner comments? Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Mr. President.
Second.
Ready to move and seconded, Mr. Angel and Mr. Sweeney. This meeting be adjourned. Any questions on that motion? Hearing none, Ms. Tanaka, please call the roll.
Mr. Angel?
Yes.
Mr. Buxton?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Howell?
Yes.
Mr. Pepper?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Banta?
Yes.
Mr. President, roll call reveals 7 yeas.
Thank you, Lori. 7 affirmative votes. We are adjourned.